Everything was okay, but the screen you shared
the wrong screen.
You see me now?
Because peace is a foundation.
Peace is a foundation.
Everything we are aspiring, transform the life of our people.
You see my screen now?
Al-Shabaab.
No.
We see you, but not your screen.
Oil from this region.
How come I see my screen?
No.
First click on share and then you should see your
Okay, let me go to share screen. Yeah, what I'm seeing so many. Okay, let me.
Yeah, that's
Yep, you have it now.
You see it now?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
How did you?
You see it now?
Okay, yeah. Dr. Musa, please mute yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Dr. Musa, thank you very much. As you see, as Musa said, the topic of my presentation is conquest, genocide, and state terrorism in the making of the Ethiopian empire and state. I have inserted state terrorism in the topic, which Moses did not have. Well, the main issues that will be discussed in this presentation are about 5. One is, I start with the clarification of main concepts or terms used in the paper. Secondly, conquest and genocidal killings in the making of the Ethiopian empire will be presented or discussed. Terrorism and genocidal killings in Ethiopia, the third part. The fourth part is what I call the Rwandization or invasion of Hutus in Oromia. And the last part is the appeal to the UN, Western governments, and heads of Christian churches by different organizations and individuals from Ethiopia regarding what they say the Oromo are up to committing genocide on the Amara particularly, but generally on Oromos in Ethiopia. Somebody is talking, please. Yeah, well, the introduction is, my aim is not to dwell on or generate a theory of genocide. Alemayu has done that now, but to describe and analyze the genocidal violence, which I argue have characterized the formation and the maintenance of the empire state of Ethiopia in the late 19th century. The study is based on information I have collected from published and unpublished historical documents compiled by travelers and researchers in the past, and reports written by human rights organizations in recent years. my source of information, the first version of this paper was presented at the International Association of Genocide Scholars Conference held at the National University of Ireland, Galway in Ireland in 2023. An enlarged version of the paper was published as an article by the African Sociological Review in 2005. The paper contains a short summary of the article published by the African Sociological Review and information about the development in Ethiopia later. I mean, after I wrote that. But I will clarify some concepts used in the paper. Before going into the description of the genocidal episodes, I will clarify the main points in the title. Empire in political and social history. The definition of empire is a group of nations or peoples ruled over by an emperor, empress, or other powerful sovereign. By conquest, I mean the creation of empires. Conquest, it means the creation of empires involves expansion or conquest, which in turn uses violence. That means Emperor Haile Selassie I and the Menelik II before him ruled over a group of nations which were annexed by force, and one of those nations were the Oromo. We use nation and nationalities in Ethiopia. We are not using tribes, and I'm not using tribes here because the common use of tribe and ethnicity is destroying, I mean, this distorting information about the Oromo and other peoples in Ethiopia. And, the conflict and the struggle that is going on is defined as tribal conflict, tribal this and that should be avoided. And these genocidal acts that I'm going to discuss here are not committed against the tribes, but against nations during the conquest and the occupation of the southern part of present-day Ethiopia. Colonization, I use colonization here. We use colonization in this conference. We are talking about colonization in Ethiopia. I think I start here. Colonization, yeah. Impelled by the appearance of the European colonialists in the region, meaning in Africa and the Horn of Africa, Menelik embarked on a much larger scale of colonization in the 1980s. This is what Gebru Tarreke, a historian, is saying. He is saying that Menelik participated or embarked on large-scale colonization. The historian Haggai Ehrlich is an Israeli historian, writes that while rebuffing imperialism successfully in the north, Ethiopia managed to practice it in the south, meaning imperialism. Bahru Zawde, another historian and an Ethiopian, writes that the race for territory became even more acute after the victory of the Battle of Adwa, in 1896, as Menelik's troops pushed further outward with reinvigorated elan, and the colonial powers, in particular Britain, rushed to check them. You see, the British were moving from west to the east, from Sudan to what is Ethiopia today, and from Kenya and Uganda up north to what Ethiopia is today, and Menelik pushed south and west and checked, and he was competing. And Menelik himself confirms that he was participating in the scramble for Africa, saying, "I have no intention of being an indifferent spectator if far distant powers make their appearance with the idea of dividing Africa." Christian Scherer, another is a political scientist, says European colonialism and the Abyssinian expansionism occurring simultaneously pursued similar interests, though from different socio-economic bases, and that both were reinforced by comparable colonial ideologies, that is, the idea of empire, the notion of the Christian mission, which aimed at the creation of a closed economic area and the exploitation of the subjugated peoples, meaning a territory, occupying a territory. John Markakis adds to this discussion about colonialism, about Ethiopia's participation in, or Menelik's participation in the scramble for Africa, and says, not a victim, but a participant in the scramble, Ethiopia doubled its territory and population in a burst of expansionist energy, and thereafter proudly styled itself the Ethiopian Empire. Here I will present conditions and the victims of a genocidal process. A genocide doesn't happen just at one go. It is a process. There are conditions, and those conditions have to be fulfilled, and there are victims, of course, against whom acts of genocide are perpetrated. One condition is colonial conquest and occupation. Then genocide against indigenous peoples occurs through war, slavery, deportation, hunger, or genocide by attrition, that is hunger too. A second condition is formation of a new social order based on an ideology. Genocide against social class, as a social classes are the victim. Politicide is action. Alamayu has talked about that. Killing political competitors, political groups is a politicide, that is the action. And ethnocide, also a group, a nation or a group that are eliminated through change of or separation of culture and language. The third process or condition is shift of power under conditions of deep cleavage. Power shifts, like, for example, between the TPLF and Mengistu. There was a cleavage, and then conditions of deep, it was deep cleavage that created that political cleavage. Those groups more or less belong to the same group. I mean, they are Abyssinians. And those who are affected are ethnic groups, politicized happens, and ethnic cleansing also occurs. So when we come to terrorism, 1, 2, 3, and 4 bill on conditions under 1. And well, this one is a little bit not clear here, but when we will come to terrorism. Now, the conquest. Stage 1, Abyssinian conquest and the colonialism under Menelik as the king of Shawa. He started as a king of Shawa to conquer the south. Starting 1870s to 1889 before he became the emperor. This is the areas that he occupied or that he was ruling at that stage. Moving to these areas, he was conquering these areas up to 89. Then what happens is genocide. Stage 1, figures of mass killing perpetrated during Menelik's conquest of the south between 1876, 89, and in the aftermath of also that was that continued anyway. And estimates are based on eyewitness reports. One here we see the Oromo being destroyed or killed and occupied. And the estimates, these are estimates, nobody counts the people anyway. But these people, Bulatovich has traveled throughout the southwest, and he is a very good observant. If you have read his book, you see how really truly is taking notes. He uses diaries, and it's from his diaries that he compiled this book. So he was saying about 50% of the Oromo population were killed, and he's talking about 5 million people existing when he was writing. Then there is this Halbiak who has lived in that country in Oromia. He lived in eastern part of Oromia, in around Harar. He estimated that the Oromo were reduced from 10 million to 5 million. They speak more or less the same thing, both this Halbiak and Bulatovich. Of course, what happened is a condition I have described in the first, in the table before this. Then when we come to stage 2 of Menelik's expansion, that is from 1889 up to Adwa, that is 1896. He was moving in those directions, and those places where you see the arrow end were occupied. And the killings that took place, the genocide that took place at that stage, covered the Walaita, who were almost 119,000, almost 900. The figures are in fact exact there. It was kept by Menelik's own secretary when they fought the Walaita. And 18,000 able-bodied Walaita were captured and enslaved, taken to Shawa. This is recorded by Van der Heim. Gaston is his first name. He was in Walaita. He was a business, an agent of a company he came to Minlik, to Ethiopia, and followed him to Walaita. He wrote about this in French. And then Chris Brody wrote in 1986 about the history of Ethiopia, and she's quoting him, and she also has uses this 18,000 and also the figure of the Walaita who were killed. Then the Burji from about 200,000 to just 15,000. There was an Italian traveler who was down there in 1895, and he wrote about them. And these are reduced. I don't know how many Burji exist today, but they are reduced. They were in fact sold into slavery. They were not killed, but sold into slavery. And many moved from there, and some live in Kenya today. Then we have conditions reconquest of the battle after the Battle of Adwa. That is from 1896 to 1904. And that is when Minlik at the end signed treaties with European colonial powers and became, of course, a recognized partner in the scramble of Africa. And to your surprise, the main genocide that took place in the expansion of the Ethiopian Empire, in the conquest, happened after Adwa. The Dizi were reduced from about 45,000 to just 3,000. That is what Hodgson says. He lived in that area, Hodgson. He's a British counselor. He lived in that area for 6 years.
We're running short of time.
Huh?
We are running behind schedule.
Okay, I'll move fast. Okay, Gimra from about 100,000 to 80% are killed. Kaficho, they were destroyed. About 75% were killed, and 75%. These people who write about them have been there and have observed. Why did conquest lead to mass deaths or genocidal killings in general, and in Ethiopia in particular? This one-sided war takes place in conquest, colonial conquest. None of the conquered peoples had declared war against the Abyssinians or Menelik. Some never even heard about the existence of the Abyssinians. Those who were engaged in attempts of self-defense became victims of mass killings. This was the case of the kingdom of Walaita and Kafa. Because of lack of firearms, they were unable to oppose the power of the perpetrators. In one side, mass killing is committed. This happened in Arsi and in Chalanko in 1887. Or they were captured in mass and deported and sold into slavery, as in the case of Maji, Burji, Gimra, and adjacent peoples of the south west. State terrorism perpetrated indiscriminately against the population to inculcate fear, subjugate, and control them. It can happen in a state where the subjects from a single nationality or belong to different nations or nationalities live. It targets political opponents, bans their political organizations, and imprisons, kills, or exiles their members. Democracies do not use state terrorism. Democratic states possess no power to restrict the political activities of citizens outside the limits of the rule of law. In short, state terrorism pertains to abusive use of force by those who hold political power. It occurs in states ruled by authoritarian regimes. History offers notorious examples of state terrorism, such as the raid of the USSR under Stalin, the Cultural Revolution in China under Mao, the raid terror in Ethiopia under Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam, which had caused immense human suffering and death, and the treatment of the Oromo under the EPRDF regime also, as state terrorism is used. State terrorism under the TPLF regime, mass incarceration of Oromo in concentration camps in 1992 to 1994, massacre of Oromo children. This I have written about. You can find it in 2 of my articles in the 19, I think, I don't remember the date, but it's a known massacre. Crackdowns on Oromo demonstrations in 2001, forest fire, because of forest fire and the demonstration, you remember. And in 2003 and 2004, transfer of Oromia capital from Finland to Adama. There was state terrorism used against demonstrants, the Machatulama organization itself, and then the demonstrations or protesters of the removal of the capital city from Finland to Adama. The 2014-2018 Oromo protests against the Addis Ababa master plan also resulted in mass massacre. About 5,000 Oromos have been killed in that. And the September 2016 Irrecha massacre of over 700 festival participants also is state terrorism, and that resulted in mass massacre. And if you look at this, these red spots are where state terrorism was acted out in Oromia and other states in Ethiopia. But over 90% of these crackdowns happened or occurred in Oromia. Mass massacre under TPLF continued. The Loke massacre of the Sidama of May 24, 2002, in which 69 civilians were slaughtered while demonstrating peacefully for their rights. The Addis Ababa massacre of participants in the demonstration staged in Finfinne, Addis Ababa in 2005 to protest the rigged election result and in support of the Coalition for Unity and Democracy Party, in which over 190 people were killed. And the Anuak massacre of 2003-4, which happened in Gambela, and some 424 Anuak people were reported killed, with over 200 more wounded and some 85 people unaccounted for. Various cycles of mass deaths and ethnocide triggered and propelled by authoritarian rule. The forms are those states with long histories of internal repression tend to be the same ones that have exhibited patterns of genocide in modern times. following forms of genocides are frequent in the Ethiopian history. Ethnocide, slow and silent deaths, that is, language is destroyed or suppressed. The Agaw, they have almost their language is not there. Only a few Agaw, I think, speak Agawnya, the Agaw language. Command is the same. And if you take Raya, for example, still some people speak Afan Oromo, but they are being claimed by the Tigrayans as part of Tigray. The Amara are claiming them as their as part of the Amara country and as Amara. And the Raya, of course, say Rayuma. I don't know how they are going to manage now when what happened recently is going to settle. Politicide, the Red Terror was of the Derg, extrajudicial killings and the disappearances of regime opponents under the TPLF EPDRF regime, destruction of by attrition or hunger, Haile Selassie's murderous neglect of the plight of his subjects in Wallo in 1973-74. The Derg also used the famine as a weapon in 1984 in Tigray. Large-scale loss of life due to famine occurred. And such death does not occur in functioning democracy. It occurs only in states ruled by authoritarian regime. That is why Ethiopia is the land of famines. Expansion, of course, people flee from Ethiopia. We had millions of people who have fled from Ethiopia due to all these reasons during the last, since 1970s, end of 1970s. The danger of discursive Rwandization of Oromia by Amharic-speaking political activists, Orthodox clergy, and the social media. This one is dangerous. This is what is waiting for us now. Discursive violence, the demonization of the Oromo was a means to acquire external support in the past or criminalize and silence Oromo resistance.
Professor Mukra, you just used your entire time, so try to sum it up.
I'm coming to the end. Okay, I'm coming. So in the past, Abyssinia was presented as an island in the sea of pagans and Islam. Then help from outside was obtained because they are Christians in the West, and Ethiopia was Christian, so they got help. Consequently, because of these pagans and Islam, for the Abyssinians, so Oromo were heathens and enemies fit only for massacre and enslavement. That's what Marjorie Perham wrote. Rwandization, there are no people on earth who, because they speak their language, are called extremists. That is what the Oromo are called. The same language is used against Oromoma today. I mean extremism, because Oromoma is seen as the existential enemy of Ethiopia, which is being promoted. The most rabid hate of Oromoma is heard on media outlets such as Esat TV and Ethio 360 TV, which have large followers. Okay, contributors to this mass media present themselves as or act as journalists or historians, but what they present on the Oromo is not based on facts at all. The danger of this language is used by authorities also. I mean, the extremism, Oromo extremists, Oromo whatever. And when it is used by, it is authorized when it is used by official, the officials of the government. Actions have become routine, and the victims of violence are dehumanized by ideological definitions. The labeling tend to erode moral inhibitions also against, and atrocities occur. This is what is happening in Oromia today. The association of the oil left with Al-Shabaab by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in Kenya forebodes danger not only to the Oromo nation, but bad omen for peace and security in the Horn of Africa. And thank you very much. I finish it here. Finish my presentation here.
All right. Thank you, Professor Mokrea. Dr. Bahero, we started 10 minutes late than that was stated on paper. So I think for question and answer, we will be extending a little bit, 10 minutes, correct?
No problem, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, so now, so this presentation was probably the most important presentation I have heard. It was a lot of new information that I have maybe overlooked or didn't read at all. So please, if you have questions to the presenter, the floor is yours.
Please use the system to raise your hands.
Raise your hand, please.
To be there.
I see Brooker, the first person who raised hand.
Correct.
Brooker, go ahead.
This is Amankadir again. Brooker is Norwegian word for the user.
So I'm sorry about that.
Yes, my name is Amankadir. I would like to thank the previously presenting professors for an excellent and very educative pieces. My question pertains to theoretical confusion that arises from the definition of racism and nationalism. So there is a great deal of confusion. The differences between the nationalism and racism, especially in the Ethiopian political landscape. What is the distinguishing features between racism, the so-called ethnic politics, and genuine nationalism, or the nationalism of the oppressed people? The second question, would you like to shed light on the Orientalist Western discourse that reduces everything Africa to ethnicity and ethnic conflicts? The third question, the difference between the characterization of the ethnicity as a ethnographical category or as a historically constituted community of people. I mean, defining ethnicity as primordial category and historically as a historical configuration. The last one.
The last question is not clear to me.
Can I repeat the question?
Yeah, please.
My question pertains to the confusion that arises from defining the concept of racism and nationalism. What is the distinguishing features between these two categories?
He said the last question. I think you are muted.
Oh,
I think you are muted.
I'm not muted.
No, okay.
Okay, go ahead now.
If that is your question, I mean,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I do.
So which
The
question
first
should I
one is
repeat?
racism.
Yeah, the first question is, would you like to shed light on the difference between racism and national.
Yeah, I understood that. I understood
The
that.
last one.
The question is the difference between the characterization of ethnicity as an ethnographical category or as a historically configured community of people. And the third is the Orientalist Western discourse that reduces everything Africa to ethnicity. And the last one, reductionist approach that reduces nations and nationalities to the genealogical category. For example, clans and tribes, Yugoslavia politica, Izar politica. Thank you.
Yeah, well, they are related, you know, the questions and the issues are related.
Your video is
racism.
off, Dr. Makurea, unless you don't want to.
What is off?
We don't see your face.
Okay, okay.
Video.
It's not, they must use time wisely.
Well, I guess you can continue. It's not a problem.
Dr. Makurea.
Dr. Makurea? I think he's also muted.
Because peace
Okay, somebody can.
Makurea, you are
for
muted.
everything we are aspiring,
For everything we are aspiring,
transform the life
could you
of
take
our
the
people.
translation
If
of our
we
people?
eliminate
Yeah, now you see it.
the
Okay.
above,
Okay. Now, when you say racism, when they talk about racist, gosanya, bihertenya, zarenya, they use those words. They just want to demonize us. Nothing else. There is no race as such. But in fact, sometimes they act as racists themselves. Like this ambassador who was talking in 1959, saying that the Oromos and the others, it doesn't say Oromo, but the others are inferior to Amhara. He was a racist. And that kind of talk we know, you know, it's just plenty of it. In fact, today, if you look at the social media, it's just everywhere. The Oromo have never been insulted as they are being insulted today in history. And the insults are racial. So there is no race, but they think they are different race in some of these Amara elites. Your second question about reducing everything in Africa to ethnicity. That is a question of power. I mean, the West is powerful. Not only, you know, with guns, but even with their discourse. They are the ones who write, they are the ones who publish, they are the ones who prevent you from, I mean, refuse to publish your whatever book or article. They are the, you know, the ones who allow you to publish or not. So the gatekeepers are them. So they establish also the ideologies and discourse. And so that is why we have Africa, the word ethnicity, ethnic groups, and so on, used, you know, when it comes to Africa, and not nations and nations. So, look, the Oromo are 40 million people, at least. They call us tribe, even in Ethiopia. How can you call 40 million people tribe, and then you have less than 1 million in other places, and then you call them nation? You have nations that are smaller than 1 million, but Oromo 40 million are tribes. So it's, you know, the discourse that is the world is used to, but we are changing it. We are saying we are not tribes. We are not ethnic groups. Of course, we have ethnic affiliation. We have ethnicity. That's saying the anthropological aspect of, being. It's anthropological rather than this historical and national and territorial. When it comes to that, we become a nation. So we are changing that, and we have to work against that. That's the only way to change that. The other one is, I think I answered your questions.
I think so, because the third one is ethnographical and historical configuration.
Oh yeah, that is when you come to nation, you have ethnicity and historical issues involved, territorial, and so many things are in it. But ethnicity, you can have ethnic groups in Norway. As Oromos, you are an ethnic group there, but you don't have any territories there. As a nation, you have to have a territory, homeland. That makes a difference.
Okay, we have a number of people also raising hands, so let's give.
Mr. Moderator, check in the chat room. There is Workene has indicated he's unable to raise his hands and request.
Okay. I think he will come after Emeru.
No, he said that immediately after Brooker. If you want to go by.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then let me give to him, and then Dr. Bayan will follow.
That's correct.
So
okay, thank you so much.
I don't have a question, but I do have additional saying on the tribe.
Yeah, because
we'll take that later, Dr. Almayo, please.
Okay,
we're running out of time.
Dr. Makura, thank you so much for the broad clarification of the definitions of terrorism. But I hear the very interesting word. You said invention. Are you referring to the fact that the group who are terrorizing the Oromos and other minority group are trying to play a victim game that we see? Are you referring to that fact, or do you want to say something else?
Yeah, I want to say two things which I jumped over in my presentation. One is they are trying to turn back time, the clock, to pre-1974. They are trying to revoke the Ethiopian constitution, particularly Article 39, and take us back to the time when Milik created Ethiopia, and then up to Haile Selassie, how they ruled, just this unitary state, one language, one nation, and one religion. Now, maybe they are not going to talk about religion, but that is the idea they have. Secondly, they have invented genocide in Oromia, or inventing genocide in Oromia, because they want to defame the Oromo, try to appeal to the world and say these people are terrorists, these people are killing us, and just don't listen to them. If we claim our rights, don't listen to what they are saying, they don't have that right. It's a kind of, trying to, of course, they think they are, or they are saying, we are the victims. We are the victims, you see. And they are, in fact, accusing the victims themselves, the Oromo. They are the ones who are being killed. They are the ones who were killed before, and they are the ones whose language and culture have been suppressed. So they are turning, you see, everything upside down. That is what, and that has helped them before. as I said. They have accused the Oromo as pagans, as terrorists, as terrible people, and they got assistance from the West. That is what they want to get again, and they are very loud. And we are not that loud. We have to be very loud.
Okay, great. We have, after Dr. Imiru, please don't raise your hands.
Yes, Mr. In fact, I want to add to that, Mr. Moderator, forgive me. Mr. Imiru will be the last, but others can ask questions if we have time after the next presentation, please. Because we are far behind the schedule now.
I was about to say that. So
thank you. Thanks.
Great. Dr. Bayan?
Thank you, Dr. Mosisa. I think you all will hear me. The question I wanted to ask was about a recommendation from Dr. Mokria. Thank you, Dr. Mokria, for your very informative presentation. It brought home the issue of genocides that Dr. Adamayo theoretically presented earlier. So now you kind of landed the issue. I wanted to ask Dr. Mokria about his recommendation going forward for us, for the Oromo, who is being subjected to genocide for more than 150 years, and they're still going on. Before that, I think he did the conclusion. I want to comment about the counter-accusation of the Abyssinian camp of the Oromo perpetrating genocide. The history, the record, the evidence shows that we are the victims of genocide. They are, I think, now engaged in propagating that Oromo is committing genocide against them, whereas we are the ones who are conquered, who are occupied, but when we resisted genocide, they accuse us of committing genocide. I think it's a cover-up and really intentional misinformation of the third party, the other world. It is incumbent upon us just to continue doing what has been done today, informs the truths and the facts and the evidence to particularly the Western world. Short of that, now, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, said that elimination of the OLF is objective. At this time, at this juncture in history of our people, OLF is nothing else but synonym to say an Oromo, or enlightened Oromo, patriotic Oromo. As the discussion earlier indicated, eliminating the intelligentsia, eliminating the activists, the politicians of a nation is equal to committing genocide. So what is in the making, as the title of Dr. Mokra really correctly indicates, still genocide and the state terrorism is in the making in Ethiopia, particularly targeting the Oromo. It is up to us, the Oromo, one, to defend ourselves, and second, to inform the world who is really the victim of genocide and who is perpetrating the genocide against the Oromo. That's just a comment. If Dr. Mokria wishes, I would love to hear his recommendation. What should the Oromos do, Dr. Mokria, going forward? Probably they rushed you. You did not have time to present your recommendation and conclusions in your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bayan. Dr. Mokria?
Well, shall I comment, Dr. Mosa?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, my recommendation is this. The Oromo should know means learn, read, so that you can defend. Intellectually, we must be prepared, number one. That is where they can fool us. Our people go and fight for Ethiopia all the time. They are patriots. But when they come back, like for example, from Adwa, they came back, and when they came back, they were Gabbas. Their land was taken. For what did they fight in Adwa? And for what are they fighting in Tigray today? While their mothers and sisters and their brothers are being killed in Oromia. What are you trying to really maintain or keep or protect when you don't protect yourself? So people should know what is happening to them and what is right, what is right thing to do. Knowledge is useful, and just self-knowledge. And then you can tell the rest of the world what's happening. You have to know to even, you have to know about yourself to tell the world who you are and what is happening to you. And that is where we have a problem. People are not being educated. Being educated, I don't mean they are not going to school. They go to school, but they don't know about their own history, about their own culture, about their own rights. That is what we should do.
We have 1 minute, so let's, I'm sorry for interrupting you, Dr. Mokra. We have one minute left, so let's give chance to Dr. Muru Itana, and then a brief answer from you. Dr. Muru.
Thank you very much. By the way, I'm not a doctor. You can call me Mr. Steele. Thank you very much, Professor Mokra, for the insightful presentation on genocide by giving us concrete examples in Oromia and other parts of Ethiopia. By using this opportunity, my thanks also go to Dr. Alamayo for his earlier presentation. I attended a similar conference about 2 months or so ago, which was organized by some Abyssinian elites. And somebody stated on that conference that there were 9 steps or stages for genocide to be recognized as genocide. All the 8 steps do not count, according to his statement. All the 8 steps do not count until it reaches the 9th step or stage. Do you have any idea about these stages? Of course, both of you raised the different types of genocide. And the next point is, who will be our judge? Who will be our judge? Because
I'm sorry. We don't have time for another question.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. So, can you respond? Dr.
Yeah, well, I'll respond. The 9 steps are there, and that is not really what it happens, but you know, genocide is a process, I said, and that process is the 9th step. The last one is denial, but it happens, and then you deny. In Ethiopia, of course, denial is there all the time, but genocide is not happening yet. The process is there. The genocide is at least, you know, killing a large number of people. Genocide happens, of course, when it comes to cultural genocide, where languages has disappeared from, for example, the part of Wello, and the Ago have lost their language more or less. You know, physically you disappear. I mean, you disappear, not physically, but culturally. And then if you don't speak your language, you don't exist. Like, for example, in Argentina, you have Indians. They speak Spanish. But the Indians are not anymore there. There is some Mapuche somewhere in the corner towards Chile. In the Caribbean, they killed all the Caribs, different people who lived in the Caribbean. You see, there are names of places in the Caribbean today, like Haiti, and all those names you find there are from the old people. But the people were killed off. You either kill people totally off, and then you have committed genocide, or you kill their language and the culture, and then the people do not exist. So I think I went a little bit further from your question, Miro, but what is happening, or who is a judge, we don't know. But what is going to happen now, one thing which I should say is this recommendation by Genocide Watch people or director about the constitution and about the Oromo youth that they should be classified as terrorists, and that the federal structure has to disappear. He's just talking the Amara elite language, but he doesn't know that if he does, he is recommending genocide to happen, because people are going to fight for their rights. Take this constitution, I mean the federal structure away, you will have genocide, no doubt about that. You will have genocide in Ethiopia. So he's recommending genocide. And these kind of people have to be told that this is a wrong recommendation. You have listened to the wrong people. Please look closely what is happening and what is the right thing to do in that country. Thank you very much. I have taken a lot of time. We'll come back to these issues anyway later on.
Thank you very much, Professor Mokrea. It was a wonderful presentation, and thank you all. Back to you, Dr. Baharo.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Professor Guluma, and our moderator for that session is Dr. Haile. Over to you, Dr. Haile, please.
Thank you, Dr.